It is 8:09. I am calling the Holliston School Committee meeting back into open session. We are going to jump right down to our school committee communications. Dawn, where are you? Dawn, did you want to share some?
Sure. A couple quick comments. I just wanted to comment the Holliston High School had its first ever virtual open house last night. It was a tremendous success. It was very well organized, getting links out to folks and jumping on and meeting teachers. I really liked how I've been to many open houses, 5 kids in the district. We've been through every school. I saw a lot of couples able to attend because it was virtual. So to the degree that once we get through all of this, if there's ever an opportunity to do something like this for working parents, for both parents or guardians to jump on there, I thought it was very successful. The Holliston High School Drama Club put on a 24-hour play fest last Saturday. It was 4 plays that were written, directed, and performed by the high school students, and they were able to already put this together. And we've really only been in session for a month and performed virtually. And now they are hard at work on the cabaret. It'll be an evening in November. The Adams open house is next Wednesday. That's October 21st from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Also virtually. We just received, as parents, we received information about that this evening. And we also received information that Adams will be starting clubs virtually in November. So keep a lookout for that. Encourage your kids to join those. And then finally, just a huge thanks to our nurse, Lynn Bowler, and to Dr. Kuska. They saw a need, and that need was a drive-through flu clinic. And, I think most people have heard by now that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is requiring flu shots for students this year by the end of December. And there are a number of pediatric practices that are having difficulty getting them in, getting everything scheduled. And they were able to arrange this. I think, Susan, is it scheduled for October 24th?
That sounds right. Cynthia's nodding, so that must be it.
And I heard it's already filled. And I think when we initially collected 200, and we're already at 250.
Yeah.
And this is a huge help to working parents who had to get this done.
Yeah.
So thank you very much to Lynn Bowler and Dr. Kuska for organizing.
She does have
that.
a few cancellations. She let me know this afternoon. So go grab those spots, those last couple spots.
Yeah, because that was the max that we could do. I mean, she really pushed it as far as she could go with that, but great job, Lynn.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else from the committee want to share some? Lisa?
Yeah, just a couple of events coming up for CPAC, the Special Education Parent Advisory Council, on Thursday, October 22nd at 7 p.m. They're having their annual meet and greet, and this is a chance for the SSAs at each building, plus the new Student Services Director, Kelly Camp, to kind of get to know the parents in the community a little bit better. And there is a flyer going around Facebook, and I know it's on their Facebook page. You do have to email hollistoncpac@gmail.com in order to get the Zoom link, and that's just for the obvious security reasons, but it's hollistoncpac, all one word, @gmail.com. And then just 2 days later, they're going to be busy. On October 24th, they're having their jack-o'-lantern extravaganza for the first time. This is going to be at Miller from 6:30 to 8:30. They've had a super successful trunk or treat the last couple of years. They just started this. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 years ago, but it was a hit from the word go. It was a success the first year. It got bigger the next year. They've done an amazing job. With COVID, they have decided to pivot to a jack-o'-lantern display where people can enter and put up a big display of whatever they want involving jack-o'-lanterns. And then people are going to buy tickets to drive through. And this is their big annual fundraiser. So just wanted to, both of these are going around Facebook, but wanted to just kind of give a plug for them. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Cynthia?
Hi, I just wanted to remind everyone that the deadline to register to vote is October 24th, and that early voting starts on Monday, October 17th. So go vote.
Thank you. I just wanted to take an opportunity to congratulate and thank Mrs. Sarah Peters is one of our 5th grade teachers. She had a group of lovely young children join us last year to talk about the school calendar, and if their request was, could we change the name or add to it the observance of Indigenous Peoples Day. And we unanimously voted, and it was a great meeting and opportunity for them to get a little civics lesson. After that meeting, we connected Mrs. Peters with Senator Spilka's office and Rep. Carolyn Dykema's offices. And we were going to set up a meeting for the students to meet with their offices and share about possibly advocating to change statewide the holiday. And their meeting was scheduled for March 20th. And unfortunately, it had been postponed due to the pandemic. And over the summer, Mrs. Peters got some emails from those students who are now 6th graders. And they are really passionate about this conversation. And so they had scheduled a meeting with the 2 offices last Thursday. And unfortunately, it had to be postponed due to the weather and the power outage. And those children prevailed. There was a meeting today at 3 o'clock. The students did their presentation. It really was, I'm so proud of them. I'm proud to say that, you know, we're part of this community with them. They did a great job, and they're looking forward to continuing this advocacy for it. So congratulations, Mrs. Peters, because obviously, you know, you planted the seed and helped them move on with their ideas, and they just were so well spoken today. The way they presented, really great job to all of you students. Congratulations. So, anyone else? Yeah. All right. So from the administrators, Peter?
I'm good today. I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. Keith? You're good? Susan, did you have any public comment you wanted to share, even though the rest of the agenda is essentially falling to you?
I think most of the things I have are going to fall into one of those categories, so I'll hold to those as well.
All right, great. Thank you. Okay, so I want to thank Mr. Dan McLeod for joining us tonight. Dan is our Director of Technology and Digital Learning, correct? Is that your right title, Dan?
That's correct.
All right, so you are our superstar when it comes to making sure that everyone is connected. I just want to publicly acknowledge how many hours you and your team have spent since March 12th. You've always worked hard, but from March 12th on, you know, I told your wife that we appreciate all that you've done and the work that you have done, weekends, evenings, standing out in the weather, standing in full PPE, handing out Chromebooks, your responsiveness. I mean, the list goes on and on. You and your team aren't always acknowledged because you're, you know, sort of the behind the scenes, but I publicly just want to thank you for all that you and your team have done. I really, and if you want to just, you know, mention who your team is so that they're not neglected, I would appreciate that because I don't want to miss anyone. And then you can jump right in and give us an update on technology.
Thank you for that, Stacy. So you might see the McLeod house in the background. We got dinner and bedtime and dogs. So just to let you know, but I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Instead of a slide deck, I'm gonna show something else we built. Just it was sort of at the last second Allie Curley's idea. So I'm going to start with that and run with that. So Keith, can you let me share? No?
Do I have to? And if I do, I don't know how to do it.
Think I did it.
Okay.
Okay.
While you're doing that, Dan, I just want to say I've always wondered how all the McLeod children get to watch TV, and now I see there's lots of sofas.
Exactly. Yeah, this the dog loves the sofas, loves to nest in those sofas, so they're pretty torn up. All right, so this was Allie Curley's idea. I give her all the credit. She's our tech integration specialist at Miller. It was late summer. We were scrambling to get all the Chromebooks out and all of the software and hardware that was coming in. And she was like, we need to build a website to just gather all of this information. So that's what we did. We have our current website, which everyone knows, I think, will be upgraded in the coming months. So until that happens, we kind of scrambled and built this technology website. So we called it the technology team. On the homepage, you'll see me, and then Sue Garvey's at central office. For those that don't know, she really runs a lot of behind the scenes work. And she's a Power School guru now and data specialist. She's also a scheduling guru. For example, Rams really had to start their schedule from scratch with COVID. So they had everything all dialed up in the summer, and then they had to build it from the ground up in August, and she had a big part in that. So she's a huge asset to the department. So anyway, I'm going to get to the school tech teams in just a minute, but I'm going to start with some resources that we've collected for families. So this page has really the three main ones that we've had Power School for a couple of years now. So we have Power School training for families here, but the new ones are Clever. For those that don't know, that's a portal that collects all of the apps for the elementary schools in one place, and the kids can log in. They can log into these apps just by clicking on them without entering their passwords. It's a great thing, but it took a lot of time to get it up and running and working. And it's still a couple of applications that need to be set up. We also have a brand new help desk. So parents, students, families, staff can all create tickets in the help desk, and it's a fantastic product. It syncs with Power School and Google. And we were actually surprised when it synced with Google. It brought in all the users from Google that logged in the last time. So it was almost like an automatic assignment for inventory. It was an awesome thing. I get excited about these things, sorry. So those are our family resources, the main ones that we want to promote. And then down here, you'll see that office hours, we plan to give those, provide those for families. That would be once a week, where families can come and ask questions via Zoom about anything we're doing in the schools related to technology. So this is a little bit more about the help desk. These are the three main people behind the help desk, which I'll talk about them in a few minutes. Power School support. We keep expanding the use of Power School. We'll probably be expanding more down into pre-K and 5 pretty soon. So you'll be hearing more of that. But there's a Power School training site. This has been up and running for a while, but it has 4 categories, and parents and guardians have a page to themselves. Again, we're going to be expanding on this page. We also built some safety protocols. Yes, please stop.
Sorry, Dan, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but where is this going to be housed on the district website?
This currently right now is on the district website. If you click the technology link.
So it's still there on the, okay.
Yeah, if when you click the technology link, it brings you to this page.
Okay.
The site, sorry.
Okay, and that's from the district page. Okay, sorry, I must have missed that.
No, I should have said that at the beginning. Good question.
It's especially because of like remote families who are only doing remote. This would be a good tab for them to put on their bar, I guess.
Yes, great point. These are just some safety protocols as far as cleaning to make sure the exchange of Chromebooks is a safe process. Remote learning expectations. We developed this document just to set expectations for video conferencing and what is expected from families and staff, et cetera, et cetera. So student data privacy, we've had actually some parents, I really appreciate the questions parents raise when it comes to student data privacy, because it really prompts you to dig deeper. But anyway, what we have here is all of our agreements that we've established with vendors to protect our student data. Some of these are not in place yet because the software was recently adopted. For example, Class Hero, which is a K-2 math program. You'll see it on here. We just requested it. It takes a few days, sometimes weeks, to get that agreement in place. But before we adopt the product, we check to see that other Massachusetts districts have used the product and have agreements in place. So we don't adopt unless we see other agreements already in place, and then we're confident that we will get an agreement too. And there's also a movement which makes a lot of sense for a national agreement. Right now there's 50 states and multiple districts within the states signing all these agreements with vendors. So the plan is for a national agreement that all states and districts could adopt with each vendor, and it would have all the requirements for data privacy. Any questions about that? All right, moving on, we have a device loan agreement. This is our self-insured program, and we expanded this to K-12. It's optional, but it basically protects against accidental damage, which can be pretty costly. Screens and cracked keyboards, those kinds of things. All right, Chromebook distribution. This was a busy time for sure, so I'm going to try to put this behind me, but basically this was a schedule for handing out all those devices at the elementary school, middle, and high school. All right, moving on to network upgrades. This is a picture of a switch, the core switch at Robert Adams Middle School that we replaced last year before COVID, thank goodness. But this created a solid backbone at Rams and the rest of the Woodland campus. And so a lot of staff and I think some families had some concerns that our network could handle all the Zooms and Google Meets. And so fortunately, we upgraded Wi-Fi at Rams in the high school last year. And we upgraded all the cabling to all the Wi-Fi. This was all before COVID. So all those upgrades were in place. We actually upgraded our bandwidth before COVID. So a lot of this was done prior to that. As far as future projects, I'm sure everyone's hearing about the ransomware attacks across Massachusetts. So that's absolutely top of the list for me. So we're planning to increase security on our ISP connections and also upgrade the elementary Wi-Fi access points. They're due for an upgrade. And then we'd also want to migrate our local applications to the cloud. We're in the process of migrating food services. Next on the list is transportation, and we're going to move all of our users to file services in the cloud. That's the plan. That could be a heavy lift, though. So that means trying to eliminate the network drives. Again, this is all in an effort to increase security and minimize the risks to the district for cyber attacks. Any questions about the network upgrades or plans?
Dan, how How are the schools handling the increased bandwidth at this point? Or have you gotten reports from people that you've had issues, or do you feel like it's been going pretty well so far?
So far, so good. It's not perfect. There are issues with Chromebooks daily, teacher devices in some cases. There's just glitches. That's part of the routine. But the backbone appears to be pretty solid. We had one rough day at the middle school, and since then, knock on wood, we've had it's been stabilized. Mary McNamara did a great job making changes to that network to stabilize those issues. So other than that, the Wi-Fi has performed pretty well. We have a couple of dead spots that we're going to address in the high school. But overall, the performance has been okay as far as the network.
Mm-hmm. Do you have the ability to slow down? I don't know if you need to do this, but to slow down the Wi-Fi access for, say, cell phones, et cetera, at even the middle school level or any of the levels, really, just so that the kids are not necessarily using their devices to, I don't know, go on Netflix when they're in class or something?
Yeah, you're talking about the Chromebooks or the personal
I'm actually
devices?
talking about people using their personal devices instead of the Chromebooks. I would like those to be boosted and other devices to not. Let's put it that way.
You can shut off access for phones. That's a little controversial.
Well, I don't know if we want to shut off access to the phones, but just because other people need to use them in the around the district, even administrators need to use them, but more just so that they're not taking away bandwidth to do things like streaming, for example, on their phones.
No, great point. The middle school actually addressed that last year. So they have segregated networks, staff, students. They have a meeting network too, and students cannot connect to the Wi-Fi, and the passwords are heavily guarded. I don't even know some of the passwords, so that's kind of comical. But yes, they've done a good job at the middle school. We plan to expand that. That was our pilot, so to speak, for the district. My long-term vision is I would like 3 networks across the district, and they're all called the same thing: student, staff, guest.
Perfect.
And so staff can travel between schools and connect to the staff network without requesting any passwords. And then we would segregate the guest network, so we make sure that doesn't touch the internal network.
Sounds good.
That's the long-term plan. I'm thinking next summer we can implement that completely.
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome. All right, so moving on to this is a big list. The staff technology tools. I'm not going to go into all of these things, but a lot of these things are brand new this year due to COVID. It's actually unbelievable what the teachers have to learn, what we have to learn. And I really credit the teachers. They've done a great job with these things. And some of these apps, for example, like Go Guardian, that's been a huge hit for teachers teaching remote students. They can see the students' screens on the Chromebooks and see if the students are struggling and redirect them, meet with those students. It's been a game changer for some teachers. So very pleased with that one. I'm going to show you this iPad hybrid setup in case you haven't seen this. Uh-oh, that's a bad link. I think I have it over here. All right, so this is what some of our staff is able to compile for teachers. Just a document with screenshots for how your new laptop will connect to your projector, and then how the iPad will sit on the stand in the classroom and run the audio and the video for the classroom. So the remote students are on the iPad in gallery view. The iPad is the audio and speaker for the classroom. It actually does a great job. It's a great device for this whole hybrid setup. And then the teacher laptop runs the show, so to speak. It does what I do, which is sharing the screen. And it's a very fast laptop, so it pulls up web pages quickly and performs pretty well. So that's just one of the sample documents that we've created for teachers to show them how their class will look in a hybrid environment. There's a lot of adapters involved to get that working, but it works. And so these are all the apps. I'll show Bitmoji Classrooms in case you don't know what those are. I'm still learning about these things. This is what a Bitmoji Classroom might look like. And so we have teachers that really get into this, and they're putting their Bitmoji Classrooms on Clever, so kids can log into Clever and go to these websites basically directly. So those are just some of the tools that we've introduced to staff. Some of these have been around, Google Sites. Also, you'll see the new website is scheduled for January 21. We will have a staff portal in that new website where staff can log in and access more resources like these. All right, so back to my staff. These are the rock stars at the high school. I think most of you know them, but Tom and Lois it was a heavy lift. They had to get all these classrooms set up with iPads, stands, laptops, adapters, projectors moving because the room was too thin for the kids to face a certain direction. And 95 teachers got brand new devices. So those had to be set up with printers. I mean, the list goes on, and these two were absolutely rock stars at the high school. And Tom, in case you didn't know this, he took time out of his day to develop the QR code solution for the elementary school dismissal. He's got a skill set that's second to none, and he's a solution guy. So, and Lois has been working 12-hour days all summer to get this to get the high school ready. So just kudos to those two. Middle school. This is our team at the middle school. Mary McNamara. I know all of you know her. She is. I love having her on the team. She is super organized, and she will. Like when she got those 6th grade Chromebooks, I was amazed. They were like ready a couple days later for distribution. I was like, how did you do that by yourself? So she's just got this knack for knowing how to process things. Matt and Tina, amazing. They were in during the summer actually getting classrooms ready for the middle school. And again, similar to the high school, all of those pieces had to be set up, tested, running. And remember, all these folks had to learn all of those all of the new software, just like the teachers. I mean, it was a huge lift, and these folks are supposed to be on vacation during the summer. So just congratulations to that team, and they work great together. All right, this is our elementary team. And Allie Curley is from Miller Elementary. She gave me the idea for the website again, so thank you, Allie. But Allie, Winnie, and Anthony is our newest member, but Allie and Winnie are quite a tandem. They just work so well together. And she's like the Zoom guru now. Like you can ask her anything about Zoom and she'll know how to do it. And she had the innovation lab at the Miller last year, which has turned into sort of Chromebook Central now. But she's been fantastic. She helped. So the elementary had 130 new staff laptops, plus 1,200 Chromebooks to hand out. So these three folks, they did it. Somehow they did it. So congratulations to them. And Winnie Carey, I just want to highlight her. She's been the Clever queen. Anthony kind of built the Clever portal, the foundation of it, and Winnie took it and ran with it, and all of those applications, she got them set up and running so that kids could log in, and she's got a special skill set. So Anthony, he arrived in July, and we greeted him with 1,200 Chromebooks to hand out and 130 brand new teacher laptops to configure. And in case you didn't know this, he used to work for the Patriots, so I feel like he's learned the Patriot way when he got here. but the guy does not get flustered. So I was flustered. He wasn't. There's 2 other people not on this website, but they deserve special recognition. They've really been, again, helped us tremendously. It's Kelly McDaniel at the middle and high school. She's been helping getting the Chromebooks ready, helping with our new inventory system. And then Michelle Hastings at the elementary school. She's been tremendous help as well. And she actually earned the nickname of Bob the Builder this morning because she was building these iPad stands that just arrived at the elementary school. So she's apparently building them in record time. So anyway, it's certainly a team effort. These folks, they've done all the work, honestly. I don't know how they pulled it off, but they did it and continue to do it. And I really actually have to share that the parents have been super patient. Just as an example, I felt really bad. I had to hand out a Chromebook like 3 times to a family because the first 2 just stopped working. And the parents have been super supportive, patient, and that's been a huge help. So that's the technology update for October.
Thank you, Dan. Would you mind closing out or stop sharing? There you go. Awesome. Thank you for that. Really, it just goes to show all of the team effort that's been involved and for the town to see where their tax dollars are going. I mean, this summer that was really impressive. So thank you for that. Does anyone have questions from the committee? Anything about technology? Anne Louise?
I just want to compliment you, Dan, and everybody on the team, because I think what isn't evident is the forethought that had to go into this. It wasn't just, oh, we purchased a bunch of Chromebooks and you were able to pull them together with a big team. I mean, that alone is a Herculean effort. But the planning that went into this, the moment the schools shut down in the spring, was extraordinary. And it was done with a lot of concern around what we thought we could implement, what we thought the schools needed, with careful thought about where technology is appropriate and where it would be necessary, and then what all the other pieces are, because it's not really just the devices that the students and staff need. It's all the support technology that goes behind, and the network and the bandwidth and everything. And we've talked a little bit about that. But there's a bigger plan than in place that contemplates every piece of that. And Dan has been at the forefront with help from everybody that you saw in putting that together. And if it hadn't been for that forethought and the proactive support of also the community and at town meeting in supporting our request, and the finance committee, even before town meeting, I don't think we could have pulled this off. It's amazing. And we are in a very fortunate place. Many districts are not in this place. And so, even being able to support hybrid, technically you need every child enabled. And that would not have been possible without starting that process 6 months ago. And it's hard to believe it's been that long. So thank you.
And Anne Louise, thank you, because that decision in June to get those devices purchased was key. I got to tell you, because we just missed it. I mean, we just made it, I should say. We just made it before all the other districts started purchasing. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from the committee? All right, Dan, it is 8:45. We'd love to have you, but please do not feel obligated to say you need to go rest.
Before Dean leaves, can I just say, on top of everything else, Dean is very modest, and he always has me grabbing him to help me with all of the different technology that I came into with the district of, learning different software and things. Just as recently as today, because I'm building a survey that's going out to parents tomorrow, and just some of the new features of Google. So I apologize, Dan. I always grab you at the last minute, and you're awesome and never complain. He's very patient, so I appreciate that. And that's how he is with all of the staff and all of the central admin and team. He supports all of us.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. Thank your team. We appreciate you all. Have a good
Fantastic.
night.
Thank you.
So before we move into any more of the agenda, Chief Mike Cassidy's here, so I don't want to hold him up too long either. I just wanted him to join us tonight with Dr. Kuska to give a little bit more of an update about our numbers and what it means for us, et cetera. So Susan and Chief.
Yeah, I was going to start with a couple of things, and I'll have Chief Cassidy jump in. One of the things that has come up recently is that, you know, as people know, we've had a few positive cases, and fortunately, we've been able to get immediate communication from our infectious disease nurse for Holliston, working with our nurse leader, Lynn Bowler. So we've been able to jump in weekend, nighttime, whatever time it is, to get that communication to parents to try to make sure we trace our contacts and do whatever we can to minimize any impact of any positive cases. And one of the concerns that I have noticed is that we seem to be getting that communication directly from the infectious disease nurse to Lynn. However, our protocol is that if a person tests positive or a student tests positive, or there are any symptoms that a student is exhibiting, staff members as well, if they have symptoms or if they've been in contact with anyone positive, they're supposed to reach out to our nurses immediately. And if it's the weekend, if it's the evening, if it's the middle of the night, email will suffice for that. If it's during school hours, phone call, you know, whatever, we can get the communication as quickly as possible. But what I'm finding is that I'm not quite sure if parents don't understand that process, even though we've sent out a lot of communication. It's just, it's such a new thing and it's so confusing sometimes. But I don't think they're very sure of when they're supposed to communicate. So I always want to say is, when in doubt, please reach out. We should not be waiting for the infectious disease nurse to communicate to the Holliston Public Schools. A parent, if they have questions or concerns, or they think their child might have been contacted by someone that is positive, or if their child is symptomatic, we need that communication immediately so we can help the parents make the decision as to whether they need to quarantine their student, get a PCR test, what the next steps are, and we'll walk you through that. But when we don't get that communication in a timely manner, that could have significant impacts on schools and potentially getting more close contact. So I really just want to reiterate the importance of that. Principals have said to me they're wondering if parents might feel anxious about bothering a principal or a nurse on the weekend. Well, that's what email is for, because if the person isn't available, they'll get to it when they can. But our principals are working night and day, our central office team, our nurses, even though we know that they should have work-life balance. This is a serious time right now, and we do take it seriously. So I'm going to be sending out some more communication around this tomorrow, along with the survey about the reopening of school. But I just want to reiterate that because we really have to have that in a timely manner. And one of the other things that I'm working with Dan on, because it relates to technology, is at the beginning of the year, we asked staff and students to certify that they would be letting us know if they were symptomatic or had contacted someone positive or had gone into a state that was a red state, which is now most of our country. So leaving our state is very dangerous as well, as we know, and minimizing any travel at this time is really important. But if they do that, they're supposed to self-certify every day. Well, we don't have a system in place that they can do that physically every day, but I'm at the point now that I think we need to physically do it every day. So stay tuned for that. Dan has been working with me, and we're going to work with Sue Garvey to have a process in place on Power School. And I know maybe it's something that is not fun to do, but we need people to every day go through that process and really think, should I send my child to school today? Or if I'm a staff member, should I go to work today if I'm exhibiting anything on that list? So I will be sending that out shortly once that's built in Power School, but I just want to kind of give you a heads up on that because we have to have that information in a timely manner. And then I will pass it off to Chief Cassidy. Obviously, he has some information about recent changes to our metrics, and I wanted him to update us on that and keep us informed as much as possible.
Thank you very much, Chief Cassidy, Emergency Management Director, coordinating the town's response to the coronavirus. So as you all know, last evening when the Department of Public Health issued their weekly report and updated the COVID map with the color coding for the risk designations, Holliston went back from the moderate risk, which was yellow, to the red, which is high risk. That's based on a 14-day average case load for the period ending the Saturday prior to the Wednesday report being published. So it's a lagging indicator. It has to do with 2 weeks of data that ended last Saturday in this case. We knew that we were right on the cusp as to whether or not we were going to be able to maintain yellow for 2 consecutive weeks, or whether we were going to dip into the red. And with a caseload average of 8.8, we did go into the red again. Looking at the active cases that we have in our community right now, a little over half of them are still associated with the long-term care facility. And those active cases have been on our rolls since September 16th and September 26th. The remainder of the cases are either co-located at a single apartment or spread out over town in several single-family homes. Contact tracing would not suggest that there's any linkage between these single-family homes and the apartment. Obviously, the occupants of that apartment, there's linkage there, but there isn't anybody else in their apartment building, and there doesn't seem to be any connection between those folks and any of the other single cases throughout town. So I know being red for 3 out of 4 weeks is concern. I know there are a lot of people who are questioning how long you're going to be able to maintain your current instructional model. And so I'm happy to answer any questions with regards to what does community spread look like, and what are the implications for everything from sports to in-person learning and any other questions that you have.
Dawn?
Thank you very much for that update and for everything that you continue to do with this and maintaining the website. So what we found out last night was a reflection of Saturday to Saturday. So it was October 3rd to October 10th numbers?
Nope, 2 weeks.
2 weeks, okay. I did notice on the town website that from October 12th to today, we went from 98 to 109, so an additional 11 cases?
That is correct.
So does that right there alone ensure that we are likely going to be a red designation as of next Wednesday?
Because that's the second, that is, those 11 cases would be within the 14-day average that's calculated for next Wednesday. It is highly likely that we would remain in the red status for next week.
Okay, and at the state level, is there any differentiation between, I guess, the numbers in terms of when they're coming from, for some towns, they might be coming from a prison, or they might be coming from an assisted living or a long-term care facility, some type of long-term care facility. Is the state pulling out those numbers? In the metric seems to have been created to know about community spread, and those are somewhat contained facilities. And do we have any evidence that we've had infections beyond those facilities, meaning people in the community within single-family homes, apartments, just outside of those facilities are getting it from a cluster within a facility?
That's a great question. So it has been a frequent topic of discussion at conference calls with the Department of Public Health on Tuesdays and Fridays with local boards of health. There are a lot of communities who have the situations exactly like what you mentioned. Middleton, the majority of their active cases were associated with a prison. Other communities like us a few weeks ago where we said, hey, the only reason we're red is because of this long-term care facility and an elderly housing complex. The model that was built and the metrics that they're using to determine the risk designation is an imperfect model for 351 cities and towns, some which have more of a residential base, some which have colleges and universities, others which have a lot of long-term care facilities. So unfortunately, they don't have the ability to put a whole bunch of asterisks on the color when it comes out in the weekly chart. And that's why it's important. And that's why folks like DESE, when they issued their guidance, they said you need to work with your local public health to determine if the risk designation is going to be the final determining factor as to whether or not you're going to change your model, because it's one factor that should be considered. So as I look at the data, if I take out the active cases that are associated with the long-term care facility, I have 8 unique addresses in Holliston where I have active cases. So when we talk about how large of a issue is this in our community, obviously for those 8 households, it's a big deal. But for thousands of other households in Holliston, right now, they don't have anybody that has a confirmed case that's active. But that doesn't mean that they should let their guard down. A lot of the new cases, as the contact tracing is taking place, are associated with 2 types of situations: long-term care facilities and gatherings. And what's happening is a lot of gatherings are occurring, and whether it's families who live in different communities are finally getting together, and because they think, oh, we're family, we can take, a little bit more liberty with our face coverings. Part of the messaging that we're trying to get out is you need to continue to be vigilant with your face coverings as much in private as you are in public. We're pretty good, at least in our community. When you're out in the community and you're interacting with other people, most are compliant with the face coverings. But then when they get together for a family birthday party or some other gathering, sometimes behind closed doors, those masks are coming off, which is contributing to spread across communities. So long answer to no, there's no way for the state to pull out the congregate care, long-term care, group home, that sort of thing, or prison populations that are contributing to the red designation. And a lot of the spread is happening through long-term care facilities still, as well as gatherings.
Thank you.
Sure.
And Louise?
Thank you, Chief Cassidy, for everything. I just copy what everyone else said on that. It's a ton of work. It's never stopping. So thank you. I have a question about how best to communicate this. So I know there's the challenge by the time you get the data and the maps update at the state level, and it's hard. And I know you're working as rapidly as is feasible with Dr. Kuska and the administration to make safe decisions for our schools. But I'm wondering 2 things. One, you write this terrific email update that gets to Dr. Kuska, and Stacy boards it to all of us. I think it would be fantastic if that particular communication was issued to the families in town. Either they could subscribe to it, or certainly we could leverage Power School to get it out to as many people as possible, because it's objective and it's fast and it's short and sweet and it comes from you. The second piece is there a way to simply isolate or communicate whether there's any school-age children involved? So without what happens is the rumor mill, the social media gets out. Next thing you know, there's a lot of misinformation attached to each update. And I think just knowing whether or not there potentially are school-age children is helpful. And I know you don't know who. I know you don't know the details often for privacy reasons, and you're not provided with that information from the Board of Health or the state or whatever. But knowing the addresses and cross-referencing with ours, we know where our school-age children are located and whether or not there's any reason to even think twice about this on a given occasion.
I will take those separately. So thank you for the comments about the communication to the administration and to your committee. I will try to figure out a way to communicate the gist of what I communicate to you in a public-facing format, because there are some details that I share
Understood.
with you that I probably wouldn't want to share out at the townwide level, because without a lot of the additional context, it can be confusing or cause additional anxiety. So yeah, I can definitely work to address that. An example of that would be one of the things that I've seen on social media, and I've been addressing it with my board for several weeks, is every time the weekly report comes out from the DPH, their number of total cases is always different from Holliston's total number of cases. So it's not since we were at 87 that our numbers have been in sync. We've been off by as much as 8 in the last couple of weeks. And I pushed back hard on the nursing consultant today. And the explanation that she gave me, which is consistent with what I've heard on the conference calls with DPH in the last couple of weeks, we're not the only community that says, it's driving me crazy. I run a report. It's different from what the state is publishing. Why is this? And so there are a couple different factors. And so I added that to the COVID page today, right above where the most recent update comes, so that FAQ of why are the numbers different? Hopefully that will help.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Hopefully that will help alleviate some concerns. And then the second question related to school-age children. So the most recent report that came from the Board of Health says that in the most recent 21 cases, so that's different from our active 21 cases, because as I said earlier, some of our active cases trace back to September 16th and September 26th. Some other cases have come on and already recovered in the ensuing month. But of our most recent 21 cases, 3 of them are between the ages of 10 and 19. So the way the information is flowing, and I think Dr. Kuska addressed this quite eloquently earlier, we're often finding out about the school-age population from the public health surveillance as opposed to directly from the parents. So oftentimes your nurse manager is getting that information before it's even hitting Maven, before I ever see the address.
Right. So, and I actually just wanted you to walk through that for precisely that reason, because the flow of information isn't always consistent, and it's not, it's harder to communicate than people think. We're not holding out.
Right, and it's not linear. So I'll give an explanation also to why there's sometimes a lag between when cases get entered into the Maven reporting system that the state uses. A lot of it has to do with where the testing is done, like where the sample physically goes to be analyzed, and how that information is then uploaded. There are some big national labs that may only send an update, an export to the Maven system once a day. And so that may come in overnight. And so then our nursing consultant doesn't see that until she logs in the next morning and sees new cases associated with Holliston. Some of the smaller labs and some of the more local labs are doing an export periodically throughout the day, which, as I mentioned a week or two ago, contributes to me updating the website 2, 3, 4 times a day. I know yesterday or the day before, it was 2 days ago, I think I probably updated the website 4 times, and I'm seeing screen captures of something from several hours previous posted on social media, and I'm laughing because it's already out of date while everyone's freaking out about that number, and it's already gone higher. So it's a very fluid situation, and that's why I can't emphasize enough what Dr. Kuska indicated earlier, which is we really need the parents and guardians to partner with us to give that information in a confidential manner through the systems that are designed so that the schools can make educated and informed decisions about what the status of the buildings will be.
Yeah, and Commissioner Riley, just to piggyback on that, today spoke with us, with the superintendents about this very topic. And one of the things that was very obvious to me is that there's always been that concern. We talk about students bringing it to school and being asymptomatic, that the younger children are asymptomatic, and that can be true. However, it's by far and large been shown currently that the numbers that we're seeing are showing us that it is not coming necessarily from the school environment. It is isolated cases that are now being brought into the environment. And thankfully, we've been lucky that because Lynn and Chief Cassidy and our infectious disease, we've been communicating on Saturdays, Sundays, immediately we've been able to try to contact trace quickly to get that information out. So then we didn't have more positive cases as a result of those. So the schools are, in general, being more safe than the general environment outside of school.
That's good to hear. And I thank you for all that goes into that.
Cynthia, then Andy, then Dawn.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief, for coming tonight again. And thank you for fielding I don't know how many emails I sent you today to talk a little bit about Halloween, because I am really concerned that Halloween is on a Saturday night, a full moon. And I think that I live in the Queens. It is hopping here like every single year, even when the weather's bad, it's still hopping here. And I'm very concerned about what Halloween is going to look like, and that could be the next kind of super spreader event for our community. And that if we're not careful and we don't take precautions or decide that we're not going to do Halloween, if that's a choice that people make, then I think it really puts our in-person learning in serious jeopardy for weeks, potentially months. And I'm very concerned about that. And I just thought maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Sure. No, I share your concern, and we've been talking about this at both the Board of Health level as well as the Select Board level for several weeks. And last week, after the Board of Health discussed it, we did post content to the town's website, which references both the state guidance as well as the CDC guidance, which really is encouraging folks to alter their normal procedures. This is not a regular year, and really are encouraging folks to celebrate and observe Halloween in a very different fashion. And they give specific recommendations on low-risk activities. And I'll tell you, door-to-door traditional trick-or-treating is a high-risk activity, and they are not encouraging that sort of activity. And I know the Queens is a hot spot. I know that people drive from other parts of the community, drop their kids off so that they can get a big snack.
Different towns come here.
Absolutely. And so everything that we just talked about in terms of why we've been very fortunate that we have not had spread inside schools is the antithesis of what people wandering through neighborhoods trick-or-treating will accomplish. Right now, we've got seating charts. If we get a call, even if it's on a weekend, and we're told that a student may, be a positive or may have been a close contact, we can immediately figure out who's closest in their circle, who they may have had contact with. When you're wandering the streets and you're standing around and parents are talking at the end of the driveway with other parents while their kids go up the front steps to ring the doorbell, there's no way to contact trace that. And again, this is a this is the sort of thing where you can be infectious before you are displaying symptoms, if you even display symptoms. There are a lot of individuals who are asymptomatic. So I agree, the traditional practice for Halloween in our community this fall is not a good idea. And that's why the governor is not canceling Halloween. The State Department of Public Health is not canceling Halloween. Our local Board of Health is not canceling Halloween. But everyone is saying, be smart, be considerate, think of everyone else in your community and the impact that you could have, and just do things differently and sacrifice. I know it's hard to ask people to sacrifice more, but this is not the year to make a traditional Halloween the hill that we want to die on.
Literally.
Chief, doesn't it, I'm just playing devil's advocate, doesn't it send mixed messages when the governor won't cancel it, the Board of Health won't cancel it? I mean, I'm just wondering, like, there's some mixed messages, and I think people feel like, well, I'm just trying to be devil's advocate. I'm not trying to be adversarial, obviously.
No, and I don't take it to be that way at all. So part of it is, again, there are 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth. There are some of those communities that have been gray since the color map first was introduced.
Yeah.
And they may have had fewer than a dozen cases since March. And so because we are independent New Englanders where we don't like big government telling us what to do, it's very hard on Beacon Hill for a decision to be made to, with just one flick of the pen, to cancel Halloween, because there are 43 cities and towns right now that are in the red high-risk designation.
Okay, but just to add that, what if a week or so from now, a lot of the other districts are in the red zone? Wouldn't it make sense to consider it at that point?
Oh, I cannot speak for the executive branch.
I know.
I cannot speak for the Department of Public Health, but every single week, people from local boards of health get on those calls and implore the DPH, will you please issue an emergency order canceling Halloween? And DPH says the commissioner is not going to do that because they want to leave it as a local option. And
so could we just maybe put out some advice on how to have Halloween safely? Maybe that's the best thing we can do to guide people into, from the people who are like, let me hand out candy, like the idea of kids sticking their like that idea. Maybe it's little, I don't know, individual packets and you prepare them with gloves on. I don't know what it is. And parents, when you get home, undoing the candy or whatever, are there any like guidelines around?
Those are posted to the website. We reference the state guidance as well as CDC.
Okay, so sorry, I don't have a trick or treater these days, but
no, that's okay. So if you go to our COVID page, and you scroll down to middle of last week, you'll see Board of Health issues guidance on Halloween.
Okay, great. Maybe we get that out to the students when it's a little bit closer, and families, Susan. Maybe we just copy that and issue it.
Yeah, I was going to say I'd be happy to send a link. Mike and I can work on something as we get closer to Halloween. What I wouldn't want to do is communicate anything just yet, because if things do get worse, the decision could change. So as it gets closer, we could.
I also don't think that it actually even talks about mitigation, standards of trick or treating. Like it's basically just telling us do this instead. It's not saying if you do trick or treating, do it this way. It's not saying that.
Andy?
Thanks. So I saw in the community I work in, Dedham, within about 48 hours of us turning into a red community, we had a pop-up testing site with Fallon Ambulance. Oh, sorry. Is there any plan for that to happen here in town? I don't know how much that I muted. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, I heard the whole thing. So, okay. So we did bring in a mobile testing unit for the elderly housing complex when we had our second cluster identified there a few weeks ago. There has not been a push to bring in mobile testing. We're in constant contact with the state. And I mean, if you look at the weekly report and you see the number of tests that are being conducted for our community, access to testing is not the problem. But certainly we'll continue to monitor that, and I can take that back to the Board of Health to see if they want to revisit that. But you know, we're very fortunate where we're located. There are free testing sites in Milford and in Framingham, so it's not that they're inaccessible to our community.
You could always bring one in and do drive-through testing when we do the drive-through flu shots on the 24th. Dawn?
Bringing us back to talking about Halloween, it could be an opportunity for when the schools do message something out about this. You know, Halloween's a lot about, you know, dressing up your costume, seeing your friends' costumes. Maybe we do something different this year in the Holliston public school systems and let the kids come in dressed up. Traditionally we have a kindergarten parade where they are allowed to dress up, and I think we allow maybe the seniors at the high school to dress up. Let them all dress up. And if for some reason we are remote and it's over Zoom, great, throw your costume on. And the teachers who want to dress up, let them do it too. This community somewhat agonized over what the graduation would look like. And we got a lot of feedback, and I was so excited that we were able to work something out, but also look at what the current climate was. But as we were getting there, we did a graduation parade because it was too early for a traditional graduation. Maybe we grabbed the fact that Halloween is on a Saturday. It's on a Saturday. Kids could dress up between 2 and 4. We could have parades, right? Car parade, Halloween, dress up. The fact that Lisa brought up that CPAC, instead of a traditional trunk or treat, will have a drive-through jack-o'-lantern. Let's give people options. So,
and a lot of those sorts of creative alternatives are what are in the guidance from both the state and CDC is, you know, think outside the box, do virtual costume contests, and just do whatever you can. But limit contact, stay away from people.
Right.
Don't touch candy.
I love the parade suggestion. Keith, maybe you could take your I quit sign and hand it off to Chief Cassidy.
Yeah. Are there any other questions for the chief? Because I would like to let him also go because he's working overtime. Chief, thank you for all the information. I know that you're working very closely with Dr. Kuska and Lynn Bowler, and I know that I shared some of the questions and comments about more joint communication between town and schools with John Cronin, the chairman of the select board. So I anticipate that we will be having more and more conversation and potentially more outward communication between the two entities. So thank you for all that you're doing, and thank you for joining us tonight. And I'm sorry we were running a little late, but great to have you, and thank you for everything.
My pleasure.
Good night.
Stay safe.
Thank you. Okay.
Can we just take a moment to reiterate the message for anybody watching at home who's starting to zone out, that we can either wear masks when we socialize in small groups, even inside, or we can keep schools open. But we're probably not going to be able to do both. I mean, I think he just said loudly and clearly that the community spread that's happening outside of long-term care facilities is because people are letting their guard down. They're having a few people over and they're thinking it's okay to socialize without masks because it's just a few people. If you're inside, I think the message was really clear. You gotta wear a mask.
Agreed.
Speaking of masks, can we move on to our policy on EBCFA? The school committee voted on this policy on August 28th, and I think we just wanted to go over an update. Did everyone receive their copy in your packet? Did everyone review it? Okay, Cynthia, do you want to?
Yeah, there was just a little bit of, there was a little bit of an issue with the first copy that you would have gotten. So then I just sent you all through Google Drive so you'd have like the most updated one. There's just like a minor change that I felt like it was worth still having you review over it in the third paragraph of the policy that just lists out when school is in session. And then for the start of the paragraph. And at the end, it says when school is not in session, current Commonwealth of Massachusetts regulations and CDC guidelines apply. And that's the only difference on the policy. And we had some further discussion about the policy. I didn't know if Dr. Kuska wanted to kind of just chime in about this, because we did talk about making some other changes about giving more opportunity for teachers to, can make some considerations if they're alone in their offices and things like that. But we decided that was not a wise thing to do right now based on obviously community spread, et cetera. So.
Yeah, and I know in particular, we had a lot of concerns come our way via teachers to principals and to myself that when teachers are on remote in particular, and they're on Zoom, which is, harder to communicate by obviously than in person, and they're trying to, in some cases, teach very young children, or in some cases do a speech training with a student. And when you're trying to teach young students, or you're trying to teach students that have specific needs, that they need to see your mouth making the sounds and showing them and demonstrating them. Yet we know with the mask, it covers the mouth. So that's a huge problem that our children, even in person, can't see the speaker's mouth, whether they're special ed or whether they're just very young children, that they're learning sight and sound connections when teachers are trying to show them these things. So for many reasons, it's much easier if a teacher does not have a mask on to communicate to children. That being the case, we are hearing more and more the CDC guidelines have changed as well. There is still a lot of question about aerosolization and the suspension of the droplets and so many different ways it can travel. And while we do feel comfortable with our safety plans in place, that if you keep that 6 foot distance, which some districts are doing only 3 feet, we have kept it to 6 feet, and that helps us with contact tracing, because in most cases you shouldn't ever be beyond the 6 feet except for very short periods. But as we started to digest this, and even though we know it would be better for our students if the teacher is remote and in her own office space and speaking to the kids by Zoom or some other manner virtually, we still don't think it's a good idea to take the mask off in those settings for the reasons I mentioned. We just don't know enough yet about the virus. But however, we did talk about what could we do to help as a school system, and Dan had ordered a bunch of microphones that are built into the headphones. I have a pair here. They're a little bit more cumbersome than what I'm wearing right now, but they have a mic built into them. And the small mic could actually, while the teachers are wearing it, be inserted right into the mask. Mm-hmm. Now, we practice, as I know, Cynthia and Stacy, you had your masks on. We practice this ourselves, and you can hear much better when the mic is inside the mask or clipped to the mask. So that is one resource we're going to be able to provide to teachers as needed if they're teaching remotely, or in some cases for teachers that are in the classroom as well, might need a mic to amplify as well. The other piece is, if they need to see the faces, we know that the clear masks do fog up sometimes. However, it's still a better alternative. So Keith had ordered, I don't remember how many, so you can tell us in a minute, Keith, but a number of the disposable masks that have the clear face
smile mask
piece, the smile masks, so that we can share those out with staff as well. So again, we're not going to be able to replicate what it would be like if you're not wearing a mask, but we do think wearing the smile mask and or having the amplifications with the microphone are the best solutions that we can come up with right now. Keith, how many masks did you order?
1,000.
1,000.
Great.
Catherine?
So I was just wondering, first of all, that as sort of Lisa was saying before, that there hasn't been community spread associated with the school buildings. It's been people outside of the school buildings is remarkable, and it really demonstrates a commitment of everyone within the school buildings that's really adhering to the 6 foot rule and the masks, and that everybody in the school community is just doing an outstanding job at making this happen, and that it's really outside of the schools that we're concerned about. So huge kudos to everyone inside the school buildings. I was just wondering about for this specifically for the, I have to imagine probably smallish number of people who would benefit from there not being a mask on. What is the situation with the tents that we had, and could those sessions be held outside so that people could take the masks off and make it not an aerosol into the HVAC system? If it's a Zoom computer screen situation, could they be outside and take their masks off?
Yes, and some teachers are doing that already. When I drive around the buildings, I've seen whole classes outside in that manner. One day I remember saying to Keith, wow, it's a little chilly out there, but the kids did not seem to be concerned. They were high school students. They didn't seem to be concerned at all. So teachers are doing that already. It just, obviously there are days that that's going to work and there are days that aren't going to work. And Keith, can you talk a little bit more about the tents and how those are being used? Because I haven't been viewing the tents as well as I would like to.
We were able to purchase one tent for each school, unfortunately, inventory-wise, as we were lucky, fortunate, timely with the Chromebooks. We were not so much with the tents. And unfortunately, the pricing was hideous at some levels as well. I mean, a decent-sized tent was up to $15,000 a tent. And, you know, it was tough. So we're continuing to explore that. The tents really only help if you're going to go out in rain as well. It's not, you know, the sun is low enough in the sky, and at this point that you're not worried about sun exposure at this point, because you're also not outside all day. So again, we're continuing to work the problem and continue to move forward. So.
Yeah, I think the fact that we have, to your point, Mary Catherine, the fact that we have taken this even more seriously than maybe some districts are doing or some settings are doing is the reflection of why we haven't had as many concerns as we could have at this point. So as much as I would like to say, let's allow our remote teachers to do that and not wear a mask for brief periods, I think that the risk might not be worth it to keep in this vein. And maybe as we get through further into the school year, maybe we would come back at a later date if we have more information about how they spread and how it's going at that time.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I wasn't suggesting that teachers take off the masks in the classroom. I meant like if they're doing a Zoom call with a child who's remote and would benefit from seeing their mouth, that maybe they could move outside so that if they had a designated conducive space that they could move outside so that they could take their masks off and be able to communicate better via video.
Yeah, and I also think there's no reason if you're trying to communicate and the child can't get it to take the mask down for a second.
Yeah.
And then put it back up. It's just, very brief times. And we just don't want to make a habit of doing that for lengthy periods. Obviously, we want to keep that but there's certainly no reason you can just remove it, make the sound if they're not getting whatever it is, and then put the mask right back up.
And Catherine, we also do have a large number of face shields as well that are available. We purchased more than 2 for each employee, and that is a supply as well. So again, it's always working. And when you talk about the HVAC system, we're still at 100% fresh air, even though we're tweaking the heat on a little bit in the morning to take the chill out of the building, but we're still 100% fresh air. So that's not an issue at this point.
Great.
But it does say in the policy that, there are some exceptions where face shields would be appropriate. So that might be one of them.
And for some individuals, we do have, I mean, I was helping the preschoolers get off out of the cars yesterday, and every single one but one was compliant with that, wearing the mask, and that child was reassured and reminded and put his mask on as he was entering the building as well.
Any other questions about that? All right.
Thanks,
We
everyone.
don't need to vote on anything, right?
Well, it's a change, but is it considered a substantive change enough that we should vote on it? What are your thoughts, Dr. Kuska?
I always rather play it safe than sorry.
Then let's vote it.
Yeah.
Vote it.
Okay, is there a motion to approve policy EBCFA face coverings as presented this evening with the changes?
Moved by Dawn.
Seconded by Anne Louise.
Moved by Dawn, seconded by Anne Louise. All in favor? Mrs. Listovnik,
Yes.
Dr. Savard,
Yes.
Ms. Naborski,
Yes.
Hanstead,
Yes. Sorry.
sorry, Ms. Koshin,
Yes.
Mr. Morton,
Yes.
Raffi, yes. Great, thank you. This evening, last night, this morning, at some point, I shared with all of you a request from both Mr. Keim and Mrs. Slaney, Dr. Slaney, for a request to change the conference days that are held for the grades 1 through 5. We have conferences usually in November, and they have asked that we move them. So we would need to vote to change the calendar, where we had 10 days of school started 10 days later than originally planned. So currently, the 2 half-day conference days were Thursday, November 5th, or I should say are Thursday, November 5th and Tuesday, November 10th. The recommended half-day change is to move to Friday, December 11th and Monday, December 15th. There are 2 evening sessions as well, currently scheduled for Thursday, November 12th and Thursday, November 19th. The recommendation has been to move them to Thursday, December 3rd and Tuesday, December 8th. So Lisa Aronian shared a calendar in case you needed to research it. So
Stacy, are we still having the professional development day on the 5th? Or would be, I'm sorry, is that the third? I can't read. Yeah, the 5th. No, is it the 3rd? Sorry, that's the 3rd. I'm looking at the wrong color. I apologize.
okay, yep, nope, so it doesn't affect. But are we still having the professional day, Peter, Susan?
December 9th.
On election day, on the 3rd, November 3rd, yes.
Oh, sorry. I'm looking at December. Yes, November 3rd is still the full day PD and December 9th is the half day PD.
Okay. So any questions, Anne-Louise?
So, sorry, I was looking at the document and all of you. I have no real concerns about it, but I'm just wondering if, given that I'm assuming these are Zoom conferences, that it would be potentially easier for the teachers and parents to be able to do some of these earlier in the day, so it doesn't have to be evenings if they don't want to. I mean, the teachers have a full load. I know they're teaching, but it might give them more flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why we have the half day ones and the evening ones so that you can accommodate both, parents that are working the day or parents that.
Okay, that was fine.
Yeah.
It was just a momentary thought. I'll just mute myself.
Okay, any questions? Any other questions?
No.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the conference days for grades 1 through 5 for both Miller and Placentino to move them to half day Friday, December 11th, Monday, and half day Monday, December 15th, 2020. And the evenings will now be on December 3rd, which is a Thursday evening, and Tuesday, December 8th. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved by Dawn.
Seconded by Anne.
Oh, sorry.
Moved by Dawn, seconded by Anne Louise. All in favor, Mrs. Listevnik,
Yes.
Dr. Savard,
Yes.
Ms. Naborski,
Yes.
Ms. Hanstead,
Yes.
Ms. Koshin,
Yes.
Mr. Morton,
Yes.
Raffi. Yes, great. Thank you all. And Dr. Kuska, I'm presuming obviously that the elementary schools would communicate this out, but maybe it's something we also just do district-wide,
Yeah.
just
Make sure it's
as an
on the website,
FYI,
too. Yeah.
just to,
And update
Yeah.
the website too, because people
Yep.
look for that there.
When we update the calendar, I can put a link and a little, probably next week, I'll put that out to parents as well.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Oh my gosh, I can't even believe we have to talk about this. year is flying. So we have our FY22 budget development calendar. Ay, ay, ay. So budget subcommittee, does anybody want to?
I got to be honest, we had a meeting today and it was a tight meeting and we didn't have an opportunity to go through this. So we haven't had a chance to look at it. And the only reason that matters is because we usually try to also dovetail with the calendar that the Finance Committee has in place as we get into the March-April timeframe. So I don't know that they've even documented that. As everybody knows, town meeting this fall has been delayed. Everybody knows, do you know? Town meeting has been delayed until December 5th. And I think that's the plan, but that potentially could change. So if you wouldn't mind, if we could just take a closer look at this with respect to, I also want to check on, with the select board, frankly, on the town calendar as well. So I'd like to take a closer look at that and with the subcommittee, and we'll get back to you by the next meeting.
Works for me, and I'm telling you that 2022 is freaking me out a little bit. Because I will have a graduate in 2025, and that's just too close. Damn. All right. That's fine. Absolutely. We can talk about it.
That isn't quite right, though. It actually should say 2021.
Oh, does it say?
It says FY22.
Oh, FY22.
It's FY22, but I just noticed the very last date on this is Tuesday, May 18th, 2022.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No. Okay. Thank you. And do we have anything to talk about for the school year calendar for 2021 and 2022?
No, we originally thought we would, but I think we should table that for now. I do want to just say while we're on calendar, one thing though, because the commissioner brought it up again today, and I had planned on bringing it to you for a vote, but I don't even know that we need to. As you know, last week we had a day of bad weather, inclement weather, not a snow day. And I was unhappy that we did have to call it off, but it was due to power outages. So that would have been a day if it was a snow day and it was snowy out, but we had power, we would have gone remote. The commissioner did reiterate that it is okay and acceptable because we have the capability to go remote now, that we would not have to take a snow day if students can remote in. So I'm not going to have us change that on the calendar because, as you know, we've already used one of those days. However, if we have a day in the future, I just want parents to be aware, and obviously you, that our goal would be to make it a remote day, unless something like last week happened that we had at least 25% of our families potentially or more, depending where they lived, were out of power, and there's a huge equity issue there. So we'll leave them on the calendar knowing that we hope we won't use them if we do have snow.
We've lost so much. Don't take snow days from me.
The spoons are going in the cooler anyway, huh?
Keith, do you have an update on class sizes or enrollments?
Sure, I do, Stacy. Thank you. Contained in your packet is our enrollment report. For those of you who remember, this is a fairly consistent report year to year with regards to structure. I just want to highlight a couple of quick things for you. You'll notice at the first section on the first page, we're looking at a total enrollment of 2,800 students. That is down 151 students, which I have a little breakdown on that, a couple of little points on that. This year, if you look at the cohorts, we had a cohort change. So children from kindergarten to first to second, et cetera, et cetera. We had a cohort change. We lost 58 students through that process. 37 of them, we had 37 Holliston residents who went from 8th grade and went 9th grade somewhere else, whether it be at home, whether it be a private school, whether it be a vocational school, so again, of that 151, 58 were made up of cohort losses. We also then had 40, our pre-K number is 42 lower, which is in direct correlation, I believe, to COVID. just because, again, less students doing that, and there's a subsequent loss in revenue attached to that as well. And then if you look at, we had our senior class last year was 226 students. Our incoming kindergarten class is 177. So there's another loss of 49 students. So then the final two is in the SP column, which is our basically our transition children. So we have 2 less transition kids. And then back to just a couple other quick points. Our homeschool population pulled from Power School. We have 47 homeschool students this year. I'm not sure they're all. I know it's not right.
So that actually is quite accurate. Right? Yeah.
Okay. There's 47 students. 15 are in grades 1 through 12. 7 are in kindergarten, which I don't remember another child being in kindergarten homeschooled before.
Yeah, it's not a requirement in kindergarten to formally, pronounce, but yeah.
And 35 pre-Ks are being homeschooled, which I don't know if that's the correct coding, but that's what's in there now. So I think it's about we're allowing parents to keep the program that they're in. So I have a funny feeling that that's the way they got coded. So we'll look a little more into that. But then another piece, just to throw a little budget snippet in here. Normally we budget for 185 full-day children. Right now we only have 146 full-day, and I'm actually not sure how many are full tuition, because if you remember, if you're on free lunch, you get free tuition for that. If you're on reduced lunch, you get a 50% discount. So I have to dig into that a little bit. So
that's for kindergarten, right?
I'm sorry?
That's for kindergarten, right, Keith?
Kindergarten, yes. So between those 2 tuition losses that are pretty easy to see, we're approaching $300,000 in a reduction in tuition. So that's the first thing I just wanted to quickly go over. Yes, Anne Louise.
I just wanted to share with everyone. So we went over these numbers this morning because I asked the question about enrollment so we could dig underneath. But just so everyone, I know a lot of the committee members might know this, but even in the community, some of these trends are obviously directly related to COVID, and some just have to do with class size issues. So like last year's graduating class was larger than normal. They were a big birth year. They were the 9/11 babies. So we kind of anticipated some of that drop associated with, say, an incoming kindergarten class being smaller. But then, of course, we do have the choices parents are making because of COVID. So across the country, there's been an increase in children being pulled out of public and going private because, in general, private schools are making certain decisions differently about how to handle in-school education. So we've seen some of that. We've seen some. There was just an article in the New York Times yesterday about that too. It was quite interesting. And then, in addition to that, we fully anticipated this. We didn't know the amount. But we did anticipate a pullback in both pre-K and full-day kindergarten in this environment. So that revenue loss, I don't think it came as a total shock to us. So, and I asked Keith about that this morning, and right now there's no dramatic impact. It's really going to be a question of what happens with with the rest of the year.
Keith, is there, I know I asked you this maybe offline a couple of months ago. Is there, do we receive less state aid if a child is listed as a homeschool child versus a full-time in-person?
We are a minimum aid community when it comes to Chapter 70. And what that basically means is that we get a set amount based on our FTE. So, $20, $25, $30 per FTE. So if 10 children went homeschooled, we'd lose $300. So it's not a big difference. If we were an impact aid community where, again, we weren't receiving more aid than we're entitled to, then it could potentially have a bigger effect. But because of the aid we get, it doesn't impact us.
If I could just put the homeschool numbers in context. So yeah, we have 46 homeschool students this year, up from 21 last year. In speaking with colleagues in the region and getting some specific data from some, I mean, it's a common trend. So Mendon Upton has 51, up from 21 last year. Medway has 36, up from 14 last year. Hopkinton has 31, up from 18 last year. Milford 61, up from 36. So that trend is something common. Many of the families are expected to come back, to us. Not all. There's always a core of homeschool parents and kids who really, prefer that mode. But many families that joined in new this year expect to come back when things go to a safer and more normal state.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Peter. Keith?
Okay, and then just going through the Placentino schools, again, it'll be a report you're familiar with 3 pages of information based on first on grade size, then classroom size, and then the Montessori piece, just as we have the Montessori model for trying to ensure we have a consistent number from our Montessori cohorts. The Miller numbers, again, the common report from them, which is grade size followed by classroom size. The middle school one's a little different this year, and I spoke with David a number of times today. The challenge with middle school is that if you try to look at any class size, because we have 2 teachers and the way the schedule works with assigning 2 teachers to it, there was no good way of actually going through and showing all the sections. So David just wrote a quick little narrative here for you to review. Grade-wise, we're pretty robust actually at the middle school with 227 and 6th, 223 and 7th, and 230 and 8th. So our numbers are really strong there actually. So it's a good sign for people's beliefs and where we're at with that. So, and then Nicole did her traditional narrative for the classes there. So please read through it. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, and I'll get those answers from the principal, or I'll give them to you myself if I know them. So any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have, Keith, if this were a non-COVID year, is there anything that's jumping out to you that you are concerned about, or a trend that you are?
I think what I would say is that, in a year where we did cut off our school choice seats because of having to go, we created the seats in the spring with the hope that we were going to be in better shape in the fall, and needless to say, we knew we weren't getting there, so we stopped. If you look at the school choice numbers, which is back on the first page, you'll see that you'll have to take a few of them out of there, but we're actually up a couple of seats in school choice. Our decrease is all Holliston residents. So again, it's showing that, to Peter's point and to Ann Louise's point, and what I said as well, which is this is a COVID thing related to our own families doing this, that families that want to come here have not, through the school choice process, have continued. So again, showing our strength as a community, showing, in our educational model, showing the interest is still strong here. So again, we're in good shape there. And actually, I kind of expected a little bit of a decrease in school choice, but we didn't get that. So that's a good thing.
John?
I just want to take a look at page 7 of 11 at Adams Middle School. And zero in on the sections above 25. And it says most unified arts and world language classes are listed as greater than 25. And I guess this is just as a topic that we should probably continue to readdress, because I think that also may include, does that number, the fact that it's more than 25, does that include our French immersion kids? Do we know if French immersion kids are receiving French immersion with only 14 students or fewer, or are they like the Spanish program where there might be 45, 50, 70 kids? And I know it says that the predominance of, say, Spanish world language is asynchronous, but they do have one class a week. And I'd like to know the numbers on it, because what I suspect is happening is you're taking like the 223 kids in the entire grade and dividing by 5. So we might have classes as big as 45 or 50. We should revisit this. We need more specificity as to the class size numbers for French immersion and also the class size numbers for other world languages at the middle school.
Yeah, Dawn, I was going to have Peter give an update tonight on both IPS and more languages, because a lot of questions have come up. We did start meeting on this topic, and today Peter and I were able to meet with Dominique Trotton as well, and we have some future meetings scheduled. So we'll definitely have more information on both IPS and world languages for our next meeting, because I don't want to give you a half of a picture that we're working on. The numbers aren't as high as you're describing, but Peter, you want to just briefly kind of talk about what Dominique was telling us today?
Yeah, we really dug in mostly with French immersion at this point, but yeah, the French immersion numbers currently are, basically grade size. So it's 32 students in grade 6, 35 in grade 7, and 38 in grade 8. They're currently meeting 3 days a week, one session for 60 minutes, one section for 42, and one section for 30, though actually grade 8 actually meets 60, 42, and 60. What we're exploring is whether or not we can bring that to 4 sessions a week. But what we also will be exploring is to what degree those class sizes should be, if we have to make a trade-off between less sessions but less kids, should we consider that? We're also looking into the possibility of any of those sessions being in person. These are all synchronous, digital, virtual sessions, but they're synchronous at this point. But we're hoping to build in some in-person opportunities, especially during that 11:58 to 12:40 block, but potentially even during the 1:30 to 2:03 to 2:33 block as well. And we're also exploring with Dominique and David. We do have a couple of more para openings, and we're trying to see if we might be able to find a para who is French speaking, so that if we opt to continue with the class of 35 or 32, we have the primary teacher and a French speaking para to help manage those breakout groups, not just the logistical technical needs, but also being able to converse in French. And so those are some of the things that are being explored in the French immersion. French immersion at the grade 3 through 5 level is getting similar access to what they would typically, though obviously in 4th and 5th, half of that is remote, but they're doing half of their instruction in French, half of it in English. We did prioritize the technology setup in that grade 3 classroom, as well as the early elementary, to make sure that in the cases, actually it's not an issue in grade 3, because grade 3, their classes are actually in the library in the multi-purpose room. So it is all of the kids are in one physical space instead of the 2 physical spaces that are typical in grade pre-K through 3 this year. But in those lower grades, making sure the technology is set up so that if the para is not a French-speaking para, that the teacher can, as desired, zoom into the adjacent classroom to provide French instruction to those kids, as well as bouncing back and forth between the 2 physical spaces. In grade 4 and 5, they have half their instruction in English, half in French. When the students are at home, that French teacher will be remoting to all the kids at home. And then the second half of the day, that French teacher will be working with the kids who are in person. So that setup is fairly, it has been, kind of less impacted in this COVID time than other situations. So that's where we're currently at with the French immersion.
Yeah, so the next time we meet, we might have some more updates related to this because we're trying to come up with some, obviously we know there have been sacrifices this year by trying to have as much in-person time. You know, it impacted our schedule and we had to give on something. However, it doesn't mean we're not going to, now that we've settled into our model, we do think we can creatively come up with some ideas to get some more rigor to the program and some more conversational opportunities for students.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that update. I think I understand it more. And then we'll probably just continue to hear how it's progressing.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Susan and Peter, for taking the time on top of everything else to try to solve this little puzzle.
All right. So finally, I'm just going to share with you some warrants that have been signed. School bill warrant in the amount of $133,903.62 with $6,199.37 coming towards CARES. Coming from CARES money. School bill warrant in the amount of $267,032.12 with $40,574.95 coming from CARES. A cafeteria bill warrant in the amount of $10,243.27 and a student activity replenishment warrant for the high school in the amount of $12,385.36. So those have been signed, sealed, and we'll be heading over to town hall for payment, etc.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. I just wondering, next week, Anne Louise, when you do your budget discussion, can we have an update, if it's possible, on where we are with the CARES money, like where our drawdown is on our CARES money?
So we did that today, and honestly, I got to be honest, I literally have been in, I think, 4 or 5 meetings today for school committee, and just haven't had 5 seconds
That's
to
fine.
redistribute it. But I can give you a very, very quick top line. We're doing fine. Of the $604,000 that was allotted to the schools, by the government, we've either already spent or have planned spending the majority of that. There's a little bit more that's about to come, which would put us slightly in the negative, about $43,000, but there's potential FEMA funding. Well, there's FEMA funding for which most of this should qualify. So that's just a very top line of not to be concerned, but Keith pulled this together for us yesterday in detail. The budget subcommittee went through it today. We tried to vet where the additional resources were with them and Travis Ahern and our finance committee liaisons at the table so that we would have a full picture. So we will get this out to you in detail and discuss it further next week. There just wasn't time to manage it today.
Got it. It wasn't on the agenda anyway. I just figured I'd ask. Thank you.
No. It's been on the agenda. Actually, would have been on sooner if we could have had the meeting sooner, but there were some reasons for that. So
that actually leads me to my question. So my next question is, we are not scheduled to have another school committee meeting till November 12th. I shared with the committee earlier that we will need at least an executive session. Next week, there is at least one open house. Catherine, do you know when the open houses are back to school for Miller and Placentino?
I can't remember Placentino. Miller is Tuesday.
Okay. So I actually almost, whatever you guys want, I'm wondering if we meet either the 22nd or the 29th, but I would like to have one of those Thursdays free because we need to get work done aside from meetings. So
Can we meet the 29th? That way you can talk about Halloween again before it actually happens.
Dawn?
clearly having Halloween anxiety.
Given what Chief Cassidy said, where we were red and then we were yellow and we were red this week, and then since the period that designated us red this week, we've had 11 additional cases. and if he had to guess, we'd be red again, we may have a lot to talk about next Thursday. So while I would love to defer it until right before Halloween, I think to be safer, we put it on for next week. And if we get great news, we could always take it off.
Or what if we schedule it as you said, plan on it, but if we feel there's no more crazy news, we don't need to do it?
Right.
We can cancel and do it on the 29th so that we can focus on Halloween for Cynthia.
It's a big deal. I live in the Queens, people.
So I want to be mindful, and even if the cases go up, I'm not sure how much there is to discuss per se. I mean, I don't want to belabor the points, but I'm trying to be respectful of meetings, and people are attending back to schools next week, et cetera. So I'm trying to.
What, Susan, Dr. Kuska, what would be the impact if we were red for 3 out of the 4 weeks?
So it goes back to what the impact is related to where the cases are coming from. So that's really, every week's a new week and a new story. And I think more importantly, it would be that I would want to talk with Chief Cassidy, have him weigh in on Wednesday night to see where the cases are coming from. And that would mean minimally, I'd want to get a communication out to parents and an update. So if I kept my thinking of maybe next Thursday being able to do an update. However, if there was something drastic, obviously we'd need to discuss that sooner than later. I don't know that we require necessarily a meeting with you. It would be more communicating, because I would be having to make a decision with the Board of Health and Chief Cassidy. Right now, as I've said, the school issues have not been as significant. However, if people continue to travel or continue to not follow some of the protocols outside, your guess is as good as mine. So I don't know about whether having the meeting is necessary, or is it just that we make sure we have a strong communication out again as to where we are next Thursday.
And kids have to wear their masks when they're outside doing sports too. So I went by a group of kids that were just all clustered together. They didn't have the masks were on their chins, which is not where they're supposed to be.
I'm going to tomorrow I'm going to send out another communication that parents are probably getting sick of reading, but I'm going to try to just bullet point some of these things. But also when I send out that survey, as I mentioned, you keep reminding about those important topics.
All right. So Catherine?
I just want to correct myself. I'm mixing up my kids. It's actually Placentino. That's Tuesday. I don't know when Miller's is.
Miller is Monday.
Is it Monday?
Monday.
Thankfully, my kids are asleep and didn't hear me just confuse them.
Okay. So we will be, I am posting meetings for the next 3 weeks. I asked Lisa to do that just because we're in the midst of election season and they're there. We'll make the call a little closer next week as to whether or not I'll cancel it, and if we'll just do executive session, because Catherine's now has Monday, Tuesday, about Thursday. So, all right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded by Cynthia.
Moved by Anne Louise, seconded by Cynthia. Roll call vote. Mrs. Listevnik.
Yes.
Ms. Naborski.
Yes.
Ms. Hanstead.
Yes.
Ms. Koshin.
Yes.
Mr. Morton.
Yes.
Dr. Savard.
Yes.
Mrs. Raffi. Yes. Thank you all. It is 10:02. This meeting is adjourned. Be well. Stay safe. Good night.
Stay safe. Bye. Thanks, Peter. Bye, Keith.